Next guy we want to talk about, like I mentioned at the start of the video, is Dame Sarr, who committed to Duke today, not long before we started this recording. Of course, he's coming over from Italy, one of the most hyped up guys in this portal cycle. Again, I'm not positive as to the eligibility he is coming over with. I don't know if he has 4-year eligibility or if he's played professionally and that maybe is taking a year or two off how long he is actually able to play in college. But I largely think he might be a one and done guy in college. I think so. But I think
Yeah,
that's really important for
I
Duke,
don't
just
see.
considering,
I don't see him
yeah,
staying.
right. I don't see him staying in Durham very long either. But considering that Cedric Howard at this point is more than likely going to be staying in the draft, I know just before we Josh took a look at the post combine mock draft that I think ESPN put out, was it, or Bleacher Report?
Yeah,
One of
yes.
the two, ESPN, yeah. But they have Cedric Howard going 30. I've seen some mocks where he goes high as 19. I think NBA scouts really like Cedric Howard, and again, I think he's likely to stay in the draft. This year, I think if he comes back to school, he would have a really good year in Durham. I love the fit, like I've talked about, but again, it's no guarantee you go in the first round if you stay in school for another year. Again, getting Dame Sarr to kind of fill that wing spot role was really, really important for Duke, and kind of makes them a lot better of a roster than if they were to not get Cedric Howard back and not get anyone else. So definitely important that they got him. I definitely like the fit here more than I did Kansas, like I talked about in our last video we did together, me and Josh, where I definitely felt you let Darren Peterson rock out in Kansas. We'll see what happens to Darion Williams maybe going there, but again, I like this fit a lot.
Yeah, no, I once again agree with you. Personally, Shire just had to get something going because
Right.
losing a guy like Howard, who by the way was your major portal pickup, I get it. The majority of the team was coming back. You have a nice freshman incoming class. It's hard to not say those things without talking about the Coward situation. But Sar adds the depth in the lineup that kind of were missing by the portal because the biggest part of the portal for Duke, at least, is getting that older, more experienced talent that can guide the freshmen. That was last year's whole thing, bringing Gillis and Sion James and Proctor and all these other guys that were, capable of helping up and Coop and come on. Like I do understand that Sar doesn't have the exact type of experience, given that he's also new to American college ball, but he has experience playing in the Euro leagues, which are pretty good. There's really nothing wrong with putting that in that scenario. So if he's going to be that older, experienced player for them, then I guess so be it. Because Coward was supposed to be that guy for them.
Right. And I definitely think it's so important for them to have a guy in the wing that they can fall back on. Just because I've talked to Josh off recording, I really just don't feel like this Duke roster scares me the way they did going into this past season in the preseason. Just considering that, I think Cameron Boozer will be really, really good. Aiden Boozer concerns me a little bit. I really have not seen enough tape on him up to this point, which I probably should. Hit the film room a little bit, watch up on Caden a little bit more. But on top of that, you do have some talented freshmen coming in. Again, the Boozer twins, like I just talked about. But you also have that Nicholas kid, who I think will be really good. They probably want to be kind of like the next Con Kneppel. Will he be that good? I personally don't think so, but I'm sure he'll be a really solid contributor for the Duke Blue Devils program. But I do have to give Shire credit. You did get continuity, but those guys are bringing back. Again, I really don't know how much room for growth there really is. Isaiah Evans largely is only a three-point shooter. Of course, there's the chance that he improves his game, but I just don't know if I feel confident in Isaiah Evans being like a big time guy. I'm sure he'll do fine in the ACC, but just I think the size limitations. His nickname Slim for a reason. He's fairly slight in frame, and just the out of conference play, bigger guards that concerns me when Duke goes up against those matchups. And Caleb Foster. I mean, we're going to the third year now where we're talking about Caleb Foster potentially making a leap, and I just don't know at this point if he really has much more to improve. Like if there's really any room for growth at this point in Caleb's career in college. But of course, you're bringing back in Bogba again. I don't know if I'll ever pronounce that right, but him, you're bringing it back. Malik Brown, who again, those guys are gonna be bigger roles next year, and I don't know if I feel as confident about Duke if those guys are in the elevated roles that they're probably going to be in this next season. And just overall, I mean, again, this Duke team doesn't scare me the way that they did last year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he pretty much said it for me as well. Despite that, though, I think Dame Sar does elevate him to be one seed, if they
Yeah,
are in that
that's very
scenario. Would I put them in last year's level? No. No, I don't really know if they could make a Final Four again, but this is without a doubt a huge booster for them. This pretty much, at least at a minimum, it secures them the ACC for another year. But I'm just not convinced by this Duke team as of right now. Maybe
yeah.
given some playing time, I can be convinced, but it really just goes on how good can Cameron Boozer be? Are we going to see jumps in Isaiah Evans and Foster? Are we going to see Dame Sarr actually do what we think he's going to do? It really depends on a lot of these things. And I think because of these clauses, there's too much to distrust than to actually bring in that type of, oh, I believe Duke can actually do well this year. Because they're gonna do well. It's just Duke always wants to win the Natty. They're never shy of it. Obviously, it's that legacy of being a Blue Devil, and it's a legacy that Shire needs to have, given that he just missed one last year on arguably his best season, perhaps ever, if you're going to ask me, given how good Cooper Flag was in college. So if you're going to put it in the way that I'm thinking right now, this might not be the most successful look for Duke, but it is still going to be a very good Duke team,
Y-
not
right.
a Natty Final Four type of team that most people are thinking of Duke, perhaps as of right now.
Right. I think you phrased that like the perfect way. Honestly, I just think again that there. I definitely am in the boat where I think that this past year's Duke team could potentially be the best roster that John Shire ever has as a coach at Duke. Of course, that's tough to say considering we can't see into the future, but of course, Natty is always the expectation of Duke every year in Durham. But again, I think it's tough to follow up the year they just had with the roster that they just had. And I definitely think that the demons of the last 2 years are going to be floating around the program, just losing the way they did the last two seasons. It's going to be tough for Shire. And if they end up as a 1 seed, 2 seed, then which I think they will, I think you have to give John Shire a lot of credit. But again, like you mentioned, I do think the Delaney Dame Sarr probably puts them as a preseason favorite to win the ACC. I think they will end up going on to do that. And yeah, I would be shocked if Duke ends up any lower than a 2 going into the tournament.
Pretty much.
And I definitely think that puts them up a few notches in my updated preseason top 10 going to next year.